Ladies, daughters of the Most High, warriors of the faith, listen closely, because this word is not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who want to live safe, easy, unshaken lives. This word is for the women who cry themselves to sleep and still get up and fight the next morning. This word is for the women who have been through the fire and didn't just survive. They came out carrying purpose. Let me say it plain. Why is it that some women seem to face storm after storm, heartbreak after heartbreak, setback after setback? Why does it feel like the weight is always heavier on your shoulders? You look around and wonder, why am I always the one fighting these battles? Let me tell you something that will shift your entire perspective. Your battle is proof of your assignment. You're not in that struggle by accident. You're not in that valley because God forgot about you. No, ma'am, you're in that fight because there's something powerful inside of you that the enemy is terrified of. The resistance you're facing, it's not about what's around you, it's about what's in you. Because when a woman carries purpose, when she walks with divine authority, when she's loaded with destiny, hell takes notice. Think about it. Thieves don't rob empty houses. Wolves don't chase quiet sheep. The enemy doesn't bother women who pose no threat to darkness. He comes hard after the women who have fire in their voice, healing in their hands, and nations in their womb. He targets the woman who walks into a room and shifts atmospheres. He attacks the woman who prays like heaven listens and fights like hell won't win. If your life has felt like a battlefield, it's because your presence in this world is a problem for the kingdom of darkness. And I get it. You're tired. You're worn. You're wondering if it's worth it. But can I be real with you? The intensity of the battle is directly tied to the significance of the assignment. The greater the calling, the greater the warfare. You're not just anyone, you're a kingdom weapon. You were designed to break generational curses, speak life into dead places, raise sons and daughters of faith, birth vision, shift culture, and tear down strongholds. That kind of calling doesn't come without conflict. Look back at your life for a second. Really look. You've been through things that would have taken other people out. You've cried in silence while showing up for everyone else. You've carried others when your own soul was weary. And yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still pressing forward. That's not weakness, that's warrior blood. That's evidence that what's inside of you is bigger than the battle around you. See, God doesn't send his strongest women into easy assignments. He sends them into dark places to be the light. He sends them into broken places to bring healing. He sends them into chaotic situations to release peace. That pressure you feel, that's not just life being hard. That's heaven preparing you for impact. That's the weight of glory. That's the stretch before the release. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's heavy, but it's also holy. The enemy wants to wear you out so you'll forfeit your future. He wants you to believe the lie that struggle means failure. But the truth is, struggle means you're on the verge of something sacred. You're being refined. You're being proven. You're being entrusted with something eternal. Heaven sees you. Hell fears you. And the battle you're facing is divine confirmation that your assignment has weight. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, outnumbered, or overlooked, remember this: you're not going through it because you're weak. You're going through it because you're worthy. You were chosen for this. You were called for this. That battle in your life is not punishment. It's a signpost that says purpose lives here. Have you ever wondered why it feels like your soul is constantly under pressure? Why it seems like life keeps pressing on every side? Your finances, your family, your mind, your emotions.
It feels like you barely catch your breath from one storm before another hits.
But before you let despair take over, let me tell you a powerful truth that will transform the way you see your struggle. Pressure produces power. You see, pressure isn't always the enemy. In fact, it's often the very process God uses to unlock what's hidden inside of you. Without pressure, grapes never become wine. Without pressure, olives never release oil. Without pressure, coal never becomes a diamond. And without pressure, you would never discover the strength, depth, and anointing that God has placed within you. That battle you're in, it's not trying to crush you, it's trying to release you. We live in a world that wants to skip the process. Everyone wants the glory without the grind, the crown without the cross, the platform without the pressing. But heaven doesn't work that way. God doesn't promote without preparation, and he doesn't prepare without pressure. What you're going through right now, those silent battles, those private tears, those moments when giving up seemed easier than going on, they're shaping you. Pressure has a way of uncovering who you really are. When everything around you shakes and people walk away and doors close, what's real starts to rise. That's when your faith gets raw, your worship gets deeper, and your prayers become weapons.
Pressure doesn't destroy the strong, it develops them. God is not punishing you. He's pulling power out of you that you didn't know was there. Look at the life of Jesus. Even he wasn't exempt from pressure. In Gethsemane, the weight of his assignment pressed him to the point where his sweat became like drops of blood. That moment wasn't glamorous, it was gut-wrenching, but it was also the moment when the power for the cross was released. The pressure prepared him for purpose, and if the Son of God had to go through pressure to release destiny, so will you. There's a reason the enemy keeps coming after you with so much force. He knows what's at stake. He knows that if you ever realize what's inside of you, if you ever walk fully in your identity, if you ever tap into your authority, chains will break, households will shift, generations will change. So he sends pressure to make you question yourself, to make you feel like the weight is too much, but he doesn't realize that all he's doing is helping you get stronger. Every time you push through, your roots go deeper. Every time you praise through the pain, your faith expands. Every time you stand your ground, your power multiplies. You are being transformed by the very thing that was meant to take you out. This isn't just pressure, it's preparation. This isn't just pain, it's power being born. And let's be honest, pressure doesn't feel good. It stretches, it bends, it breaks comfort zones and challenges complacency. But it also activates purpose. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. It sifts your circle. It sharpens your discernment. It forces you to lean into God like never before. And in that place, under that weight, you begin to realize that you were built to carry more than you thought. Have you ever found yourself wondering why God allowed certain things to happen to you? Why you had to be the one to carry what felt like an unbearable weight? Why you, out of all the people around you, were chosen to walk through deep waters, steep valleys, and seasons so heavy you couldn't even explain them to others. Let me speak something into your spirit that might just shift everything. God trusts you with the weight of glory. Pause and let that settle. God trusts you. That's not a light statement. That means God sees something in you that others don't. That means when heaven was assigning strength for battles, he placed a divine confidence in you. That means he looked at your heart, your potential, your calling, and said, she can carry this. I can trust her not to fold. I can trust her not to give up. I can trust her to walk through fire and still hold my name high. And let's be honest, being trusted doesn't always feel like a blessing. Sometimes it feels like a burden. It feels like being crushed under expectations, responsibilities, trials, and warfare that you didn't ask for. You're thinking, if I'm so strong, why do I feel so broken? But strength isn't the absence of struggle. It's the presence of endurance. God gives his most trusted daughters the most intense assignments, not because they are flawless, but because they are faithful. When God trusts you with the weight of glory, he allows you to experience situations that are too heavy for natural strength. Why? Because he wants to reveal supernatural strength through you. He's not trying to prove what you can do in your own power. He's setting you up to display what only he can do through you. The calling on your life is too great for shallow waters, so he leads you into the deep. It's in the deep that you learn to depend on him. It's in the deep that trust is tested and refined. And it's in the deep that glory rests. This glory is not fame. It's not applause. It's not influence for the sake of ego. No, glory is the manifest presence of God revealed through your life. Glory comes with a cost. Glory comes with weight. And not everyone is called to carry it. That's why your life has looked different. That's why certain doors didn't open. Certain people couldn't stay. Certain battles had to happen. You weren't being overlooked. You were being entrusted. God doesn't trust the untested. He doesn't place the weight of purpose on someone who can't withstand pressure. That's why he allowed the shaking. That's why he permitted the crushing. He knew the oil would flow from your obedience. He knew the testimony would rise from your tears. He knew your yes would become a weapon in the spirit for others who didn't yet know how to say yes for themselves. There are some battles that weren't even about you. They were training grounds for your assignment. God saw the future generations tied to your name, and he said, she's the one. I can trust her to break the cycle. I can trust her to carry the mantle. I can trust her to walk heavy with glory and stay humble in heart. People may not understand the weight you carry. They might look at your strength and admire it without ever knowing what it cost you. He sees every hidden sacrifice, every quiet prayer, every night you stayed up interceding when you needed rest yourself. He sees how you keep moving when your legs feel like giving out, and he whispers, that's my daughter. I trust her. Have you ever walked through a season so intense, so consuming, that it felt like everything in your life was burning to the ground? Have you ever stood in the middle of a trial thinking, I didn't sign up for this fire, I didn't ask for this heat, I didn't choose this battle, and yet somehow you're still standing, battered maybe, bruised most definitely, but breathing, alive, and still believing? That's not by accident. That's because you were built for the fire. Not everyone can handle the heat you've endured. There's a reason God didn't give your assignment to someone else. There's a reason he trusted you to walk through the flames, because the fire others because there's something inside of you that the fire cannot touch. That's not weakness, that's divine design. You need to understand something powerful. The fire doesn't just expose what's fragile, it reveals what's unshakable. It burns away what's temporary so what's eternal can rise. That's why certain relationships fell apart when the heat got turned up. That's why some people couldn't stay connected to you. They weren't fireproof, but you were forged in the flames. The things that were meant to destroy you are the very things God is using to define you. Look at the story of the 3 Hebrew boys in the book of Daniel, thrown into the blazing furnace for refusing to bow. The fire was so hot it killed the men who threw them in, but not only did the flames not touch them, they didn't even smell like smoke when they came out. Why? Because God doesn't always deliver you from the fire. Sometimes he delivers you through it, and when he walks with you in the middle of it, the fire becomes the stage for his glory. So if you're in a fiery trial right now, don't panic, don't shrink, don't question your worth because of the heat you feel. Fire is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of formation. It's the place where faith becomes real. It's where you stop depending on comfort and start leaning on covenant. It's where your character is sharpened, your vision becomes clear, and your power is revealed. There is a boldness that can only be born in the fire. There is a strength that only rises when everything else has burned away. You don't know how strong your faith really is until it's been tested. You don't realize the depth of your anointing until you've had to use it in the middle of a crisis. You don't find your voice until the silence around you demands you speak. And you don't recognize your authority until the fire tries to silence you and you stand up anyway. What you thought was punishment is actually promotion in disguise. The enemy wants you to believe the fire is proof that God has left you, but in reality it's proof that God is with you. That's why you haven't been consumed. That's why even when it felt like everything was falling apart, your spirit kept rising. That's why no matter how hot it's gotten, something inside of you refused to break. The fire tried you, but it couldn't destroy you because what's inside you is stronger than what's around you. So if the heat has been rising, it's not the end. It's a signal, a holy confirmation. You're in the very place where God shapes warriors, where he molds leaders, where he prepares history makers. You're not going under. You're not being destroyed. You are being revealed.
Have you ever asked yourself, what was the point of all that pain? You've been through things you never told anyone. You've carried burdens that almost broke your back. You've cried yourself to sleep wondering if anyone saw, if anyone cared, if it would ever make sense. And in the middle of it all, you questioned, why me? Why this? Why now? But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. Your story is someone else's breakthrough. The tears you cried weren't wasted. The nights you wrestled in silence weren't unnoticed. God has a way of turning the deepest wounds into the loudest weapons. What you went through, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss, the rejection, it wasn't just about you. It was God writing a testimony so powerful that when released, it would unlock freedom for others. That thing you were ashamed to talk about, that's going to be the key that sets another woman free. We often think our scars disqualify us. We think our past is something to hide, something to bury, something to pretend never happened. But God sees it differently. In the kingdom of God, scars don't disqualify, they qualify. They are the evidence that you survived what was meant to kill you. They are proof that grace carried you when strength couldn't. And they carry a message that this world desperately needs to hear. Somebody is praying for the wisdom that came from your wilderness. Somebody is drowning in a storm that you already survived. Somebody is facing a battle that looks just like yours, and they're waiting to see if anyone made it out. You did, and now your story becomes a beacon, a light, a map. You didn't just survive for yourself, you survived so someone else could know that survival is possible. There's a woman on the verge of giving up who needs to hear that you didn't. There's a mother who's exhausted who needs to know that someone else has walked that same road of pain and found joy again. There's a young girl doubting her worth who needs to hear from someone who once doubted too, but learned to believe what God said instead. Don't underestimate the power of your journey. What nearly crushed you is about to become someone else's reason to keep going. That's why the enemy fought you so hard. He wanted to silence you. He wanted you to be so ashamed of your past, so bound by guilt or fear or trauma that you'd never open your mouth. He knows that if you ever started speaking, if you ever told your truth, if you ever walked in your testimony, chains would start falling off other people. The enemy doesn't just hate you. He hates the freedom that's going to be released through your life. You see, pain becomes power when it's surrendered. Your story, no matter how messy or complicated or painful, becomes sacred when you place it in God's hands. That divorce, that addiction, that depression, that abuse, that loss, none of it is wasted. God can redeem every detail. He can take every broken piece and create a masterpiece that shouts, look what the Lord has done. And the beautiful thing is, when you start to speak, you don't even have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be real. People don't need polished. They need authentic. They need truth. They need someone who's been in the fire and came out with the evidence. That's you. You don't just carry a story. You carry deliverance. You carry hope. You carry the kind of truth that makes the enemy tremble because it's drenched in glory and wrapped in grace. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, surely this can't be the end of my story? Have you ever felt buried beneath disappointment, pain, and seasons of silence? So much so that it seemed like everything you dreamed of was slipping through your fingers. Maybe you've heard others speak about purpose and destiny, and you wonder if those words even apply to you anymore. Let me remind you of something powerful, something the enemy hoped you'd forget. Your comeback is already written in heaven. You might feel like you've been counted out. Life has hit you hard. People walked away. Opportunities dried up. Maybe you even made some mistakes that you thought disqualified you forever. But hear this loud and clear. It's not over. It may look like defeat. It may feel like the final chapter. But what you're going through right now is not your ending. It's your turning point. The place that looks like the grave is the very place where resurrection power is about to show up. Don't you know that God specializes in comebacks? He takes the overlooked, the rejected, the broken, and breathes life into what everyone else gave up on. You serve the God who lifted Joseph from the pit to the palace, the same God who turned Ruth's sorrow into redemption, the same God who restored Peter after denial, the same God who raised Lazarus after 4 days in the tomb. If he did it for them, he can surely do it for you. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. You were never beyond the reach of his hand. In fact, heaven has been working behind the scenes the whole time, setting you up for a divine return. What you thought was a setback was God pulling you back like a slingshot, only so he could launch you further. And here's the thing about divine comebacks: they don't restore you to where you were. They elevate you beyond what you imagine. That's why the battle has been so intense. That's why hell has been loud. That's why everything around you tried to convince you to quit. The enemy saw what was coming. He saw the shift. He saw the potential. He saw the weight of glory on your life. And he knew if she ever gets up again, everything changes. Your comeback is dangerous. Your recovery is a threat. That's why discouragement tried to bury you. That's why depression tried to paralyze you. That's why fear whispered lies in your ear every night. Because your next move is going to break generational curses and rewrite bloodlines. Sometimes God allows the bottom to fall out, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you better. Sometimes he lets what was comfortable collapse so